Well, hi everyone. I'm Mark Powell from Esoteric Recordings, and I'm pleased to say that we're about to release the new album Anomalia by JANE GETTER Premonition on Esoteric Antenna. And I'm even more delighted to say that with me via Zoom is JANE GETTER herself. Hello, Jane.
Hello.
Uh, how are things? How are things with you?
Things are good considering, we're still in this pandemic, but things are looking up, at least in the States, and I'm very excited for the release. I think the album came out great and the artwork is beautiful and getting a lot of great responses from people, so I'm very excited about that.
Fantastic album, I have to say, and we're really pleased to be actually working with you on it. But how long has the album been in the making? How long? When did you first start work on the album?
Well, I'm always writing. All the time. I'm always writing, and so the songs. Some of the songs had been around for a year or two. Some of them were fairly new before we started recording. And we did the first day of basic tracks in 2019, in the fall of 2019, and then we did another day of basic tracks in the winter of 2020. And right after that, the pandemic hit, and it was a big, everything got shut down. And we were so lucky that we had done all the basic tracks before, which were done in the studios. All the studios were shut down, and we were able to finish the album, through our own home studios. And the timing just worked out amazingly. And our mixing engineer he works out of home also. So it was just fantastic. We were so lucky that the timing worked out like that.
So this was an album that sort of began life in a studio and then was finished off at home by the various musicians because of circumstances.
Right, right. And I was probably going to be doing a lot of my overdubs at home anyway. And, different guitar parts and some, vocal harmonies and stuff. I was planning on doing that anyway at home just for budget reasons. And and then the special guests on the album, they they just did their parts at home and just sent it to me. So and then Adam did his overdubs in his studio also.
So you managed to assemble a very impressive cast of musicians on this album. Are these people you've all worked with in the past, or are some of them new to you? Could you tell us a bit about how you got the musicians together and how you actually got your band together in the first place?
Yeah, sure. Well, Chad and Stu, I've toured with both of them. Well, actually, so let me backtrack for a second. So we've got my band has a West Coast rhythm section and an East Coast rhythm section, and Jane Getter Premonition uses all of them at any particular time. Well, not all of them together at the same time, but depending on the tour, depending on the timing and everything. So if we do just local stuff around the East Coast, New York, um, the East Coast rhythm section is what I use because many times the budget doesn't allow to fly Chad and Stu in for like a one-off or whatever. Um, and and then the West Coast rhythm section, I guess it's really like budget reasons, like going to Europe, it really depends on who's around because, as you know, Chad Wackerman, Stu Ham, um, Gene Lake, and Mark Egan, they're all busy with other projects. So it really depends on when the tour happens, who's available, really.
Sure.
And so, and I love all of them. I love all their playing. They all bring something different to the music, but I really love it all. So, I feel really fortunate that I've found people that I love to play with and are, if a tour comes up and then, Chad can't make it, but Gene can make it. And I'm like, okay. So
How
that's
did the band actually come together in the first place? How did you get the band together?
well, Adam, who is my husband, in case you all don't know, that we've been working together for a long time. Actually, our entire marriage, I would say, from various bands. We when we first got together, we had a band called No Soap Radio, and then he went off and doing his own thing, and I went off and doing my own thing. But he was always in my band because he's like, he's like the best keyboard player for my music anyway. And he also has been my co-producer for the recordings. So he's always been around. And then when I started wanting a second guitar player, when the band turned into Jane Getter Premonition as opposed to just the Jane Getter band, my music had some metal elements in it, in some of the songs, but there's always a jazz thing existing, in every song, I would say, in some way, some form, some fashion, because I played straight ahead jazz strictly for a lot of years. And Alex Skolnick is like the perfect guy for that because I wanted an authentic metal player, guitar player, to play those sections because I wanted it to sound like the real deal. And I mean, I can play that stuff, but I wouldn't call myself a metal player. And then, with Alex's jazz background also, so he ended up being the perfect guy. So he's on all the JGP albums, and he's toured with us. Um, and then in terms of Chad, we did. Adam knew him somehow through. I can't remember how he knew him. He had a connection with him, and we had a couple gigs out in LA in the West Coast, and this is before JGP. This is when it was just the Jane Getter band, and so we called him, and he was available. And then he ended up being my favorite drummer because he ended up having, like, I play with a lot of great drummers in my career, and they're all different. They all again bring something else to the music. But Chad was like, he was like all my favorite drummers in one guy. He could do all the things that I loved about the drummers that I played with, but he brought it all in there. So that was pretty amazing. And let's see, uh, then Stu, he when I was putting the tours together for On the first JGP album. Um, the bass player that had been playing in my band was not really what I was looking for. I was looking for a different kind of bass player, and a friend of mine knew Stu. I mean, and I tried like a few different people, auditioned a few different people, and nothing really worked out. A friend of mine knew Stu, so I called up Stu. So he ended up getting that gig. And then as far as Mark and Gene, Mark, I know from every summer. I I play. I teach and I perform at a festival in Austria in August, early August.
Okay.
And Mark Egan is the bass player who's doing that, and so I met him there, and so he ended up being someone that plays in our band. And then Gene Lake is. I can't remember. I ended up calling. I can't remember. It was a gig or a tour. I'm sorry, I'm not remembering. Anyway, that Chad couldn't do. And so after calling a few different drummers that I thought would be good, Gene was the guy that could do it. So that's that. Oh, and then Randy McStein was recommended to me because he sings great and he plays guitar. So he did a tour with us when Alex couldn't make it. And then Chanda Rule, who's also on the album, is someone that I met at Outreach also. And she lives in Vienna, and she's got an amazing voice. And so I wanted to put her. So she sung with my band when we played there a few times. And so I wanted her on, to put her on the album. And then, last but not least, Vernon Reid, who's a special
Yeah.
guest on the album. And he had done, he was a special guest with the band when we played at the Iridium in New York City a few times. That is also, Adam knew him from somewhere. And so it was like at the Iridium, it was Alex and me and Vernon. So you can imagine how crazy that was.
Sure, yes. Yeah.
That was like some of the most fun I've ever had on stage, Um, and so then when the recording possibility came up, I asked him if he would want to play on a song, and he said, "Yeah, he would love to."
Fantastic. I mean, the album really does encompass all of those influences that you mentioned. For example, that yeah, I mean, it is quite a melding of all those styles. Was that something you'd set out deliberately, or is that something that happens by accident when you write music? Is it a vision that you had in your head, or is it something that happened as the songs evolved?
It happens as the songs evolve. I don't consciously sit down and say, "Oh, I think I want to do a singer-songwriter song right now," or "I think I want to do a metal song right now." It just evolves out of the initial seed of the song, and then the song develops, in a way that my ear is leading it. But I mean, sometimes I say, I need a heavy section here. I want this section to go into something heavy. And so that is conscious, or I want this right here to be, I want it to really dynamically come down into like a little soft thing. So those are the conscious moves that I make, conscious creative moves that I make. But I I don't try to combine all those elements. And sometimes I feel like throughout my career that's been kind of detrimental because people don't know what to call it. They don't know where to put it. It's not jazz. It's not just rock. It's although now in progressive
Yes.
rock it is, it fits now, I would say, I think. But yeah, so the answer to your question, no, that's not a conscious thing.
I was going to ask you about that progressive tag. Is that something you're quite happy to be classed under? Some people have a problem with that. Is that how you would view it? Because many people would see what you're doing is truly progressive in that sense of the word.
Well, yeah, I think it's a progressive. I like that term. I feel that definitely is a good explanation for the music because it's progressive in that it doesn't just sit in one genre. It does move around. And rock, I would say it's more rock than jazz. Um,
Yeah.
and I would say um, it's more rock than metal. It's more rock than like singer-songwriter. But there's all that stuff in there anyway. So yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. Do you?
It's a horrible question. I'm sorry for that because it is it's music and it's good music. I mean, it is unusual still in the world of rock, for want of a better word. There aren't many female guitar players, and how did you get started as a professional musician? And did you find being female in quite a male dominated environment to be a challenging one in establishing a career?
Yes and yes. Yes and yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, when I first started playing, I was just playing acoustic guitar and, strumming, open chords uh, and playing blues. I always played a little blues. I was always like into little blues. And I never really thought of playing an electric guitar. And then I heard and saw Bonnie Raitt play. And I thought, well, yeah, why not? And so I started to think about that and going in that direction. And then I just got into jazz. I heard Joe Pass play, and I said I'd never heard guitar played like that before, and I was like, wow, I want to be able to do that. And so I dived deep into jazz, practicing 6 hours a day and studying and all that kind of stuff. And especially at that point, I mean, there's a lot more female guitar players out now than there ever were, but it's still slow. And I mean, I always found, so anyway, let me back up for a second. So I got heavy into jazz, and then I started morphing more into like rock and uh, groove oriented music with backbeats. And then I got into, uh, I guess, fusion, jazz rock fusion, combining the two. And then I
Sure.
ended up getting more into what I'm doing now. And but yeah, so being a woman is, you have to prove yourself twice over when someone is checking you out. They look for faults in your playing. They look for you to suck. They look for you not to play as well as the guys. So you got to prove yourself twice over to get the respect, I feel. And not so much anymore, but I still feel it sometimes now. And the opportunities I found, um, a lot of times people don't want women in their bands. They don't want to tour with women. So you're cut out of some of those opportunities. But then some bands want a girl guitar player. So then you get some opportunities in that respect. But those are fewer than the other, opportunities out there, I find. So who
Do you
knows?
think? Do you think it's?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think it's got slightly easier for female musicians than it was maybe 10 years ago, for
I
example,
do. I do
in that
I
regard?
do because there's more of us, and we're playing better than ever, because we're, especially the ones that have been around for a few years. We've just grown and evolved as musicians, and it's not such an oddity to have a killer woman player in the band. At this point, I feel.
Sure. I mean, it's as I say, the music that you produce is pretty unique. And you mentioned the idea of touring. Do you have plans to actually go out on the road and play this music live?
Oh yeah, for sure. In 2022, I really, really want to, and I'm realizing that now is the time to start really thinking about that. So yeah, 2022, hitting the road. I hope, but who knows? Who knows how they're going to be? Like, I mean, if we're still in this mess in a year, oh my God, I don't know what we're going to do.
Well, hopefully things will be getting slightly better, easing slowly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
do you have, maybe we could talk about a few tracks on the album? I mean, it's probably a difficult question to ask, but do you have particular favorites on the album that you
I
could say
actually,
something about?
yes, I actually do. I really, really like Dissembler. I really like Alien Refugee. Um, and I really like Answers. I would say those are my top three favorites of songs. But I obviously really like all of them, or else they wouldn't be on the album. I mean, I chose these 8 songs plus the solo guitar piece out of about 15 or 16 songs that I had ready to record. And so I chose the best ones because I wasn't really prepared to do a double CD set. So I still have more material to record. Um, and last year, when I was home, I actually ended up writing a lot. I mean, like I've got like I have like a whole other CD's worth of material from just last year. I mean, but a lot of those songs were like little seeds that I had lying around that I didn't have time to develop. So, and some of them are brand new. So yeah, so those were the top choices out of those 15 or 16 songs that I had lying around that I hadn't been recorded that I wanted to record.
Do you find, are you one of those musicians who finds it quite easy to discard certain pieces in favor of other ones that you've recorded? Some musicians find that very difficult, but you mentioned you've written all that material. So did you find it quite easy to go through that process?
No, no, I didn't. And I had Adam to help me figure this out because it's always good to get a second opinion on that, you know, because you get very attached to your songs. So, I mean, I do hope to record that stuff, you know, at some point. I mean, I'm not, I mean, you know, I don't plan on like throwing those out because there are some good things in those songs.
Sure. Do you find? I mean, you mentioned the recording process. You had some time in the studio before lockdown. Did you find it difficult not having that interact with the kind of music that you compose and play? It very much is something that I guess I would imagine depends on interaction with other
Sure.
musicians.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you miss that? Was that tough when you had to finish the tracks? I mean, did you find that not having that interaction or being able to be in the same room as people to complete
Right.
the material difficult?
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. Luckily, uh, the overdub parts were just sort of second for my guitar parts. They're just sort of second and third guitar parts that were specifically written that really didn't require interaction. But all the solos, yes, they required interaction. And although some of them I ended up redoing parts of, or um, like I think only one of them I redid at home. I wasn't happy with it, but yes. So those required interactions, and just like the basic tracks, the basic groove, the basic feel of the song, we got that, we captured that in the studio. So these are just sort of the additional parts that didn't necessarily require interaction. You know, the ones that we did.
Sure. So you actually you captured that mood in the studio and then were able to embellish it at home later on.
Right. Like
Well,
I mean,
I think that the thing that I'm sorry, carry on, Jay.
oh yeah, no, I was
Carry
just
on,
like,
Jay. So
it's just like you know, like doubling some parts, you know, adding like another little picking part or a little harmony line for the melody, harmony lines for the melody, and you know, so that stuff doesn't really require interaction. So that worked out pretty good. Hmm.
well, I think the album has that feeling of a band. It has that feeling of live musicians, which is not necessarily on a lot of records these days, which is one thing I enjoy about it so much. And
Hmm.
uh, so your plans for the future then? After this, you're waiting to see the reaction to the album, and then it looks as though we might, hopefully, circumstances permitting, see you on the road at some point next year.
Yes, yes, yes. I really hope that the touring world comes back to life next year. Um, so for sure.
Are there signs of that happening in the States right now? That live are people starting to book live music shows again?
I know some people have some stuff booked, you know, for later, like later in the summer and the fall. And if things continue to happen like that, I do want to book a few local shows in the fall to start, you know, getting this music, playing this music, you know, in a live setting, and um, so we'll see how things are progressing, and like I said, in the States, things are dropping. The cases are dropping. A lot more people are getting vaccinated, and so hopefully that trend will continue. I mean, and right now I'm supposed to go to Austria in August to do this outreach festival in Schwatz, Austria, where I'll be playing and teaching. But hopefully, they're going to let us in. I mean, I don't know. I mean, last year we couldn't do it. They did it anyway with European musicians. So this year, hopefully it'll happen. And we'll just see.
Well, Jane, we wish you all the best with maybe getting some stuff together on the road this year. And obviously, the album you produced is a great one. We're really pleased to be releasing it. And
thank you so
well,
much.
let's see how things develop. And thank you very much for your time.
Oh yeah, sure. And I want to say thank you. I'm really happy that you decided to release it, and I love working with you guys. So thank you so much. And
well, it's a pleasure. Thanks, Jane.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Bye.